Welcome to Sick Fun, the show where we ask, was that art or am I just emotionally damaged now? Today we're diving into one of the new French extremity's most notorious movies, Irréversible, a 2002 rape and revenge flick told backwards by none other than Gaspar Noé, a polarizing figure amongst film directors, and probably one of the only filmmakers within the disturbing movie genre whose other works I've seen previously. Which doesn't happen often because disturbing movies are usually hit or miss. And while the same could be said about Noé's films, I think he stands out from the rest. Some say he's a genius, while others think of him as pretentious. And for me personally, it's a mixed bag. But that's okay, because his movies are not for everyone. They're very abrasive, difficult to watch, often nauseating, and very dry, showing almost no sense of humor to themselves. Which strikes a chord for me because even with disturbing movies, I like it when filmmakers inject some comedy into them as it humanizes the characters. With Gaspar Noé, you get none of that. In fact, the characters are usually unrelatable and one note, while the story is very bare bones. But those things aren't what defines his films or what they're about. They're usually about abstract psychedelic ideas such as time, death, and the loss of control over oneself. The characters and story are only there to complement the idea behind it, mixed with a whole lot of sex, violence, and drugs. Of course, these themes are nothing new to exploitation cinema, it's only how it's presented that's interesting. And some might say that hey, you don't need to show explicit scenes to get your point across, because otherwise you're just being gratuitous, just to shock audiences. And fair enough, that's a valid stance to have, because many disturbing movies are made in fact solely just to shock you. And Gaspar Noé is no exception to this. He likes to make unentertaining movies, and he loves to be hated. He's a provocateur, and by no means subtle. In fact, the film of today's topic will show what lengths this director will go to. When Irréversible premiered at Cannes in 2002, it became one of the festival's most notorious screenings. Reports indicate that around 200 audience members walked out, and about 20 fainted, with local emergency services having to administer oxygen to them. Needless to say, the movie has a mixed reception, and I wouldn't imagine it any other way. So what's the appeal of the film? The fact that it does everything in its power to make you physically sick. It's a movie about violence, and even though we have plenty of those, not many show it for what it is: ugly. In popular culture, violence has become a fantasy. Whether it's a game or a movie, most will show it as badass, entertaining, or heroic. That's not to say that it's wrong to enjoy such media, because I know I do, but prolonged exposure to stylized violence does desensitize you. And that's why I think Irréversible is important, because it rips all entertainment value and reminds us of what violence truly is: devastating and heartbreaking. And just to hammer the point down, I'm sure you've seen a movie where someone's death happens off screen. It happens quite a lot actually. Sure, it's more subtle, but it's also much easier to process the death and glaze over the fact that someone was just killed. That's because it doesn't focus on the suffering. Whereas if we were to see all the glorious details of the incident, maybe we'd stop for a second and think about it more profoundly, about how fragile life truly is. But that's not how it usually is, and horrendous acts of violent crimes are glossed over and knitted into little tight packages of entertainment for mass audiences to consume, where violence is commonplace, but it's heavily dumbed down. That's why I can't really enjoy superhero movies, because while these massive battles are shown with buildings falling over, I just can't help but think about all the people that are dying but are never shown. So what does this have to do with Irréversible? Well, everything really. But before I dive deep into it, a quick seizure warning, as well as massive spoilers ahead. So if you want to watch this movie for your own, which I'm totally sure you do, this is your chance. Be free! Off with you! Go! And for the rest of you, let's talk about Irréversible. The movie actively challenges you from the get-go, as it starts by showing the end credits first. But knowing that the movie goes backwards, it makes sense, And if you've seen Noé's films, you'll recognize the man's interest in making interesting credits. The words are bright blood red, and after a while, they start rotating. What? What the hell is this? What has happened? Make him stop! Yeah, it's a bit unsettling, but then we move on to some more credits that flash in your face. And again, if you've seen Noé's films, you'll note that it wouldn't be a Gaspar Noé movie without an epileptic seizure. You know, I've always wondered why this specific credit scene got to me. It's definitely iconic in its visual presentation, but what sets it apart and makes it truly ominous is the sound design. That's because an extremely low frequency sound of 27 Hz is played for the first 30 minutes of the movie. A sound that can't be heard by the naked ear, but still affects your body physically to create sense of nausea and anxiety. You can even test to see if the sound is there by randomly stopping the movie. You'll hear a little bump every time. Anyway, the film begins, or rather ends, and we see the camera spinning at the dead of night, capturing some buildings along the way. Get ready because the camera is gonna spin for a good portion of the movie. It flies through a window inside an apartment, and we see the butcher, played by Philip Nahon, a character from Noé's previous films, Carne and I Stand Alone. He sits there naked and seems down about something. He talks with another person that we don't know, and the butcher says that time destroys all things, which is the theme of this movie. He also mentions that he went to prison because he slept with his daughter. The other man tries to calm him down by saying that there are no bad deeds, just deeds, but as we progress through the movie, we'll see that it's further from the truth. I mean, if we think about it philosophically, sure, we can say that there are no bad deeds, just deeds, because what we perceive as good or bad is just a construct of our culture. And when you have different cultures, we interpret things to be good or bad differently. But even if these interpretations are subjective, I'm pretty sure nobody wants to be molested by their fucking father. We can even interpret that time destroys all things, like life, civilizations, and certain species, but I wouldn't say it's true for the butcher, as he has only himself to blame for sleeping with his daughter, an action he took knowing full well the consequences that would follow. It's actually a bit of a hassle to try and analyze the dialogue of this movie, because the film doesn't have a lot of meaningful discussion between the characters, and the script that was made is only 3 pages long, with no dialogue whatsoever, so most of it is improvisation anyway. But whatever, this is the last time we'll see these characters as they hear some sirens outside of their window, and the camera follows. Next, we see a club by the name of Rectum. Clever name. There's a guy taken away on a stretcher by paramedics. His name is Marcus, and he's played by Vincent Cassel. There are some insults being thrown his way in the background, especially the homophobic ones. We don't know why or what's happening, but then we see another character, Pierre, played by Albert Dupontel, who steps out of the club. He's being taken away by cops and there's some more insults directed his way. Then, the camera spins some more and flies around the city until we end up in some dark and red place followed by a very uncomfortable noise. And boom! We just traveled back in time. This will happen throughout the movie when the scene is over and it's time to move to an earlier scene. So where are we? In the Rectum, duh, a gay BDSM club. And here's Gaspar jacking his little friend. Also, the noise that plays here is crafted to emulate the experience of real clubs, as it sounds like 2 separate tracks are playing simultaneously at different volumes. This is also a good moment to mention that the soundtrack was composed by Thomas Bangalter, one half of the former French house duo Daft Punk. You know, I get that the movie is supposed to be disturbing and that the noise that follows us complements that, but who the fuck is supposed to get horny listening to this? Anyway, Marcus and Pierre are here and they're trying to get inside the club. Marcus says that he's looking for someone named Tenya, but as they enter inside, Pierre tries to stop Marcus from taking revenge. For what? We're yet to find out, but Marcus doesn't care and goes inside asking people if they know Tenya. When he finally finds someone who does, he doesn't immediately say where Tenya is and continuously suggests Marcus to fist him. Because of that, Marcus beats him. But the guy eventually leads him to some men, and Marcus suspects that one of them is Tenya. He then smashes a glass bottle over his head and starts beating him, but the other man quickly overthrows Marcus and breaks his arm. He's about to sodomize him as well, but Pierre comes to the rescue just in time with a fire extinguisher and smashes the guy's face in. After the good deed is done, we whoosh again to the past as the camera flies away. So now, Marcus is in a car, searching for the rectum. He goes inside some restaurant to ask people if they know where it is. Along the way, he says some racist and homophobic shit. Oh, and if that wasn't clear already, this movie uses a lot of slurs. He doesn't get any useful info, so he makes a scene and goes back to looking somewhere else. He asks some people on the street until he finally gets some directions. Then Marcus goes back to Pierre, but he takes over the car and wants to leave to meet someone named Alex in the hospital. Marcus then picks up a metal pipe and starts smashing the windshield, forcing Pierre to come with him. And just like that, we whoosh back to the past again and end up in the same car from before. But this time, there's an Asian man driving it. Marcus and Pierre sit in the back and ask the man to take them to the rectum, but the driver doesn't know where it is. So Marcus starts harassing the driver, calling him many racial slurs, while Pierre tries to calm him down. But it doesn't work, and the driver has had enough. So he stops the car to throw them out. But in surprising turn of events, Marcus drags the driver out, sprays him with tear gas, and steals his car. Actually, it's not that surprising considering we already saw him in that car before. Anyway, time reversal moment. Marcus and Pierre are walking around with two unknown dudes behind them. Pierre is trying to convince Marcus not to seek revenge, but as usual, he doesn't listen. They go around talking to prostitutes, searching for someone named Guillermo Nunes. Yeah, that's the one. They find her and start harassing her until she gives them a name, Tenya. One of the guys says that he knows him. Apparently, Tenya is a pimp. They harass her some more to get his location, and she mentions the rectum. But before long, other prostitutes attack the men who run from the scene. Marcus and Pierre get inside a taxi, and thus we go back in time. We see a police officer speaking to Pierre, asking him questions. He gives his testimony, and the cops let him go. Pierre steps out of the car and walks to Marcus, who looks shocked and depressed. Then, both of them are approached by an unknown man who claims to be their friend and someone who can help them find the person responsible to take revenge. I guess they're some kind of gangsters. Apparently, a purse with an ID was found at the scene of the crime. The name was Guillermo Nunes. Fuck me, man. Marcus, being in a state of shock, doesn't say much, but eventually agrees to take their help. And so, we travel back in time again. Marcus and Pierre step outside some building, just casually talking. They want to grab a cab, but a police officer stops them from doing it there. And that's when Marcus notices it. He sees Alex, played by Monica Bellucci, all bloody and beaten up, being taken away on a stretcher. This is where we find out that she's his girlfriend. And what follows afterwards is probably one of the most infamous scenes in cinematic history. So strap in, because it's about to become hella disturbing. As we travel back in time, we see Alex walking out of a building. She tries to call for a taxi, but to no avail. The woman standing next to her suggests taking the underpass, saying that it's safer. And oh, the horrible irony. So Alex takes the advice and walks over to the underpass. After walking down the stairs, she enters a bright red tunnel. As she's walking past it, two people from the opposite end walk in. It's Guillermo Nunes and some man. He suddenly starts beating up the woman and it scares Alex. She tries to run away, but the man lets go of the other woman to pursue Alex. He traps her in his grasp and threatens her with a knife. And what proceeds afterwards is what I would describe to be the most disturbing rape scene in the history of ever. Seriously, I've seen movies in my life, but out of all of them that feature a rape scene, none of them come close to the depravity that is presented in this movie. It's a 9-minute, uninterrupted sequence with a still camera on the ground where the abuser brutally sodomizes Alex without using any lube and proceeds to beat the shit out of her afterwards. What's even more haunting is that someone else tries to go through the underpass, but upon witnessing the act, they turn around and walk away. But now we know the reason for the revenge, and it's even more devastating when you realize that Tenya, the person who raped Alex, isn't even punished at the ending of the movie. If we take a look at what happened, Pierre smashed a guy's face in with a fire extinguisher, but it wasn't Tenya. The real perpetrator stood there, next to them, soaking in all the violence unfolding before him, but no justice was served. It's heartbreaking because the film already ended, and there's nothing we can do but watch as the film goes back in reverse. Also, this scene counts as an anchor point for the story, as the tone of the film shifts completely. So now we see Marcus and Pierre at a house party. They're casually talking to each other, having a good time. We see that Marcus is a bit of a wild guy, as he kisses other women and snorts cocaine. Pierre is shyer, acting as a moral compass, trying to get Marcus to stop doing these things because Alex might find out. He brings up how she's dancing alone and that he should go to her. I wonder what's up with that. Well, in the next shot, we can see Pierre, who stumbles on Alex dancing in another room. He looks at her for a good while, implying that he has some deeper feelings for her. But his stare is quickly interrupted as Marcus catches up with Pierre and makes fun of him. Then he approaches Alex and talks to her while Pierre stands in the background, watching awkwardly. It's from this conversation we learn that Alex was the one who invited Pierre. Marcus makes some more fun of Pierre behind his back, and Alex, feeling bad, decides to go dance with him. But Pierre doesn't want to dance because it brings back bad memories. Anyway, Alex walks off to talk to some friend, and she mentions that it's a special day. But the conversation is interrupted again as Marcus shows up, and he looks like he's tripping his balls. The friend goes away, and it's just the two of them now. Alex notices that Mark is on something from looking in his eyes and flapping jaw. So she gets angry and decides to go home. She says goodbye to Pierre, who asks her not to leave because he misses her, but Alex leaves anyway. And wouldn't you know it, we go back in time once again. Marcus, Pierre, and Alex are standing in an elevator. Alex talks about a book that she read, about how the future is already written. Oh! But the conversation somehow devolves into what makes Alex come, and it's actually Pierre who starts talking about it. It's a bit uncomfortable as he tries to get information from the couple, because he admits that he could not make her come. And yes, as it turns out, Pierre dated Alex in the past. Anyway, they enter a train and continue their conversation there, in front of other people. It's very clear that Pierre is jealous of the two and just wants to understand what's so good about Marcus that Pierre doesn't have. That's when Alex says that Pierre focuses too much on his partner's pleasures and doesn't let himself go all out, saying that sometimes a woman's pleasure is the pleasure that the man feels. And it's interesting how that reflects the later half of the movie when Alex gets assaulted. Anyway, they arrive at their destination and time reverses again. Now we're in Marcus and Alex's apartment. They're laying in bed naked, there's a message on their answering machine, and it's Pierre who lets them know that his car broke down. Alex says that she had a dream about being in a red tunnel, and she thinks it's because of her period. Apparently it's late. Marcus says that he'll need to be nice to Pierre because he stole his girl. But Alex says that he didn't steal anything as she's not an object. They get up, Marcus puts on some music and says that he'd love to fuck her ass. They play around in the bed for a while before Alex storms off to the shower, and Marcus leaves to get some booze. After showering, Alex decides to do a pregnancy test, and as she's walking out of the bathroom, she passes a somewhat reddish corridor before taking a seat on a red sofa. Then we learn that she's pregnant. That special day, as Alex lays there on the sofa, we transition to the final scene of the movie, and the Seventh Symphony by Beethoven plays in the background. Alex, laying in a park, reads a book while random kids play with each other. The camera focuses on the sprinkler and starts rotating uncontrollably before flying into the sky, where we have our last epileptic seizure. Then, text is presented on screen. Time destroys all things. And the movie ends, or rather begins. So let's unpack the movie. Gaspar found funding for Irréversible after pitching an idea for a story that was told backwards to capitalize on Christopher Nolan's 2000 film Memento. The appearance of Monica Bellucci and Vincent Cassel also contributed to the financing of the movie, as at the time they were a major power couple. Originally, Noé pitched an idea for a movie involving unsimulated sex scenes to Cassel.
Irréversible. Gaspar was a very renowned director. The story is 5 o'clock in the morning at the Bain Douche. I'm sure you heard about it back in the days, you know. That club, and 5 o'clock in the morning.
Then one night he came to see me really late, very late that day, and he said, would you like to make a movie with Monica with explicit sex scenes?
He comes, you know, with a glass and he says, hey, you want to make a movie with your wife and real explicit scenes? What do you mean, explicit scenes? Yeah, real sex, you know. I say, Gaspar, come on, you're drunk, leave me alone, I don't want to talk to you. But, I mean, that stayed in my mind, you know, and that night I went back home and Monica wasn't, I mean, she was sleeping, but I kind of woke her up.
And I said, you know, I met Gaspar tonight, and he told me, and I tell her the story. She said, what did you say? I said, no. I said, but why did you say no?
The next day I called him back and I said, you know, what do you mean by explicit sex scenes?
We watched like the movies by, like a few movies, you know, with real explicit sex scenes. I don't remember the movie shot in England with English actors by
Patrice Chéreau.
Patrice Chéreau,
Intimacy.
exactly. You watched like a bunch of normal movies, let's say, with real sex scenes. And so we were watching this with my wife, and we were like this, you know. So you watch the movie, it's okay. Oh yeah, maybe, why not? And suddenly, here comes the sex scene, and it's like, of course not. It's just impossible. Just the fact we thought about it is totally insane. No.
This movie would later become Noé's 2015 movie Love. But after rejecting the idea, Noé suggested a rape and revenge movie, to which the couple agreed. And the production started. The film, although told in reverse, was shot in chronological order during the summer of 2001. Most of the camera work was done by Noé himself, and in one of the interviews, he mentioned that he used cocaine to help him carry heavy cameras in order to shoot the spinning shots. As mentioned previously, the script only had 3 pages, with each scene taking about 1/4 of the page. No dialogue was written, so actors had to improvise the scenes. And this being a Cassel and Bellucci film, they did pretty well as Dupontel. Bellucci has gone to say that she enjoyed her time while making this movie, and regarding the rape scene, she was actually the one who directed it, alongside with Joe Presta, the actor who plays the rapist. Vincent wanted to be with her during the shooting of the scene to support her, but Bellucci didn't want that, and according to Cassel, she said that it would be harder for her to work if he was there. So the man went to southwest of France to surf. And so, the scene was shot 6 times over 2 days. Some more notable facts regarding the production are that CGI was used during 2 scenes. During the fire extinguisher scene, where they filmed 2 takes, one with Dupontel giving virtual blows without harming the actor, and one with him smashing a latex dummy with blood inside. Since the dummy wasn't lifelike, they added CG to make it more realistic. The other time they used CGI was during the rape scene, where a penis was added onto Tenya. Oh, and do you remember the guy that walks in during that scene? What's interesting about that particular part is that it's somewhat an accident. Apparently, the person in the back is an extra who didn't do what Gaspar wanted. So they made a separate take to reintegrate it into the main shot, so as not to waste a good take. I'd strongly recommend checking out the behind the scenes video about the post-production of the movie, as it goes into more detail about it. Anyway, what's the point of the damn movie? When the film came out, it quickly sparked controversy as a misogynist, homophobic, and transphobic film. But personally, I don't think that's the case. I find it more in the lines of a critique of male toxicity. For example, the foreshadowing in the chronological beginning act as cruel reminders of the things that transpired. The red tunnel dream, the hallway, Marcus's fantasy for anal sex. Remember when Alex says that she's not an object? Or the book that she reads and then later recites? About how destiny is predetermined? She likes it when men are selfish during sex, letting it all out, because a man's pleasure is sometimes a woman's pleasure according to her. And what happens when Alex is eventually assaulted? Marcus goes out of control. Much like the rapist, he threatens a person with a knife, insults those around him, and acts violently. And because of that, there is no resolution at the end, only a tragedy that is irreversible. And while I understand the concern for such strong language used by Marcus, I feel like it's supposed to symbolize the character's descent into madness after his partner got assaulted. Because keep in mind, before any of this happened, even if Marcus is sleazy, he's still more gentle and caring during the beginning of the movie. And for the most controversial scene of the film, they just wanted to show how a real situation like that would look like. When asked Noé why the rape scene was so long, he responded with that it's simply as long as it might last in real life. It seemed like the normal timing for the situation. So, what do I think about the movie? I would describe it as a good film that I don't like. And writing a script for this video was a much harder challenge than I anticipated. Having to rewatch the movie is not easy, even for me, and this is my third time watching. That said, I still think it's creative and stylish. It's also very deliberately structured and presented. The beginning is nice and mundane. The camera is calm, characters have constructed dialogue, and there's more color in the world. But then, all of it is taken away right in the middle, and the film becomes cathartic. There's slurs, violence, flashing lights, spinning camera, and noise that induces anxiety. Everything cultivating to make this a nauseating watch. Obviously, this is not an enjoyable movie, and I'm glad that it wasn't made to be. It doesn't romanticize violence and instead uses it to create the worst kind of horror. And that's where the reverse chronology really helps, because although I don't think this movie is clever like Memento in terms of telling a story backwards, the gimmick really works here to make the beginning of the movie that much more dreadful. So, if you're interested in disturbing French cinema, Gaspar Noé, or have access to therapy, give this one a watch. But anyway, what did you think of the movie? Did you like it or have a seizure? What movie ruined your week? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more movies that ruin your appetite. Till next time, peace out.